We tell everybody that they're great and that they're special, and a lot of times they're not. I'm going to get absolutely blistered for saying this, but I swear this is completely true.
Hey doing everybody, my name is Michael from WakeUp New Jersey. I'm here at Paul Kanitra's office, and we just had a great interview talking about the state of New Jersey and all the shenanigans going on. I really hope that you enjoy what we're talking about here, and really hope that you share it with others, because it's very important that we learn who our assembly people are and really showcase that they're here in our neighborhoods trying to fix things in our state as well too. And thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed the interview. Hey Paul, how you doing? How's everything going?
Good to see you.
Came here today, just wanted to really have a great conversation with you, really, appreciate a lot of what you're doing here in the state of New Jersey.
Thanks.
And really want people to really get to know you. So my first question is here, what got you into politics?
When I was probably like 14 or 15 years old, I was like, I'll start a diary, right? I never really actually had a diary or anything like that, but I wrote 3 things in there. One of them was to have a house on the street in Point Pleasant Beach. I got a house on now. The other was get married, have kids, and the third thing was be mayor of Point Pleasant Beach. But I didn't think that was going to happen. I didn't think it was going to happen for a long period of time or anything like that. I moved back home to take care of my grandparents. I'm half Italian, half Slovak, and that's kind of like you go home and you make sure that you're taking care of family type situation. And when I was back there, the local party came to me and they were like, "Do you want to run for council?" There was a little beef in there. Once I was on council, I ran in a primary against the sitting mayor. I won. And then the assembly seat opened up and decided to take a stab at that, and here I am.
Well, what do you find more challenging, being a member, a councilman, or an assembly person?
Well, that's an interesting one. I'll tell you, they're all very, very different. Mayor is a really cool gig, right? Because you're in charge of a town. If you have the votes, you can kind of chart whatever direction you want for that. And I was really focused on the history of everything in Point Pleasant Beach and making sure it was kind of the safe, family-friendly place that it was when I grew up. And things have been getting a little dicey on the beach and boardwalk before I ran. So I was really, really into that. But when you're mayor, you lead the Memorial Day bike parade with a couple hundred kids riding their bike behind you. But it's also super personal, right? Like, your neighbor across the street builds something on the dunes that they shouldn't be able to build. They come to you and ask you to can you take care of something? You're like, no, nobody gets special treatment, and they don't talk to you for years, right? Mm-hmm. Here in the assembly, especially with us being in the minority, it's less personal, right? But I get to really tackle big issues, and that was what was getting frustrating when I was mayor of Point Pleasant Beach. As we started to come into the offshore wind situation, as we started to deal with more and more crime in town and everything like that, I found that really the root cause of all the crap that was bothering me in Point Pleasant Beach was in the State House. And so when this opened up, I figured I'd take a stab at this and try and tackle it from a higher level.
Well, I said, how's your time in there? Do you actually like doing it?
I love it. And it's interesting, like when you talk to lobbyists and other people in politics and everything like that, and even former mayors, I think a lot of people dislike it or don't think that the average person would like it because, especially not necessarily being in power and being able to shape the outcome of everything. But I've taken a pretty different approach to it, right? Like I feel most of the craziest stuff that we're dealing with in the assembly, it's simply happening because they can get away with it, right? So now if I get to be myself and I get to go in there and yell and scream and highlight how crazy it is, and every time that they sneak into some bill, they call a woman a birthing person, I get to jump out of my seat and call them out for how fucking nuts that is, right? But I relish that. Like, I like that because then things don't happen in a vacuum. And we do notice, I've already noticed in a year and a half, that we've been able to keep some super crazy things from being as crazy as they could be.
I go to Trenton and make some noise as much as I can. Because there's just some egregious bills. First off, the Freedom to Read one recently, which is so bad. For anybody that's watching right now, that's where they allowed inappropriate books in your kids' schools and give carte blanche treatment to anybody on staff to allow them to push obscene material, which is completely nuts. But one of the things that really put you on my radar was actually the illegal immigrants. And you showcased that $7 billion, over $7 billion of our hard-earned dollars put towards illegal immigrants. I mean, when you saw that number, what did you think?
Look, we were searching to figure out how bad it was, right? With a lot of these things, and we've probably got about 4 or 5 investigations that we're doing right now. you know that it smells bad, right? It doesn't pass the sniff test, but then you got to dig in and figure it out, right? And I could just see from being mayor of Point Pleasant Beach how much there was illegal immigration just on the periphery of our little affluent beach town, right? And now you extrapolate that out to the rest of the state. I knew it was bad. I didn't know it was that bad. I didn't know that 1 in 10 people walking around in the state of New Jersey was here illegally. And that resonates, right? When you can quantify something factually, when you can show people a fact and figure that really, puts a situation into a clear and clean bucket, I think that is what makes a difference, because as you well know, the average person is just trying to get by, right?
Of course.
Average person doesn't like politics, doesn't usually like politicians, right? They don't have the time to dig into the issues the way that you make time to go dig into the issues, or that I do because it's part of my job and part of my passion. So when you can distill stuff down into some sort of manageable bite that people go, holy crap, all right, this is a big deal, that's what moves the needle on things, right? And people all across the country were starting to do that. We were finally moving away from, oh, you can't say this, or you can't talk about this, or people will get offended if you say X, Y, and Z. And now people are coming into the light and shining that on, situations that deserve a little bit more. People are waking up. It's starting to move elections. It's starting to change the direction of the state and the country. And that's a really good thing,
most definitely,
in my opinion, right?
I mean, I think having New Jersey as a sanctuary city, state, whatever you want to call it as, is completely one of the most ridiculous things. And one thing I want to just ask you is, did Matt Platkin ever call you back about an open debate about that poor mother and her 11-year-old daughter that were killed by an illegal immigrant via DUI, when he had previous DUIs and a rap sheet like out the wazoo?
So it's good. It's funny that you brought that up, because I got really angry, and I try not to be ready, fire, aim, right? I try and do it in the right cadence of everything. And I was like, I'm going to challenge this guy to a debate. And I took a little pause, and I was like, well, what if he accepts? And I was like, good, what if he accepts? And then I charged ahead with it. And there was a really well-known political reporter that I know for a fact reached out to him and broached the subject, and he ghosted him. And that was disappointing. You would think that Matt, with his, I think he's got an Ivy League degree and multiple of them as well, would look at, little old mayor of Point Pleasant Beach and say that he could be able to crush me. But the reality of the situation is, I think they know that what they're doing is ideological, right? I think they know that what they're doing isn't right and isn't proper and is nefarious. And, given the opportunity to face the music and go back and forth and kind of account for your actions, chose not to step up, right?
It's completely nuts. I mean, Matt unfortunately has just bungled every chance he had of trying to be bipartisan and completely showing his progressive ways.
I will give him credit,
okay?
He has managed to unite both sides in this gubernatorial debate into both sides. No one wants him sitting in that seat anymore. Even Mikey Sherrill said that he's gone if she gets elected. And that's a pretty big accomplishment, to be able to get Republicans and Democrats together to say both of them think that you suck. I mean, it's a pretty good accomplishment. I've never met a single police officer that thinks that he's got their back or is doing a good job whatsoever. And most of our crime in this state is because he's a pandering fool, in my opinion. But go figure.
Well, as I said, it's just a shame that, just keep perpetuating so much nonsense in the state. I mean, especially with 5756, I'm not too sure if you're fully aware of that, what they call policy 5756, but it's really guidance where it's hiding information from parents and schools.
Right.
Do a lot of your voter base really bring up the fact that 5756 is a terribly egregious guidance that put on schools to really hide information from parents? This is something that's really brought up a lot.
They know that parents need to have rights, right? And those parental rights have been eroded in so many different forms in this state over the years. People didn't really believe it at first when, they started using the alcohol and the marijuana issues to say that you can't approach cops and then you can't tell parents. And that was kind of the beginning of it. Everyone across the state, whether it's a rural area, an urban area, whether it's this segment of the population or that segment of the population, everybody thinks that parents need to know about what's going on with their kids. Because what was it like when we grew up, right? If you acted up, your parents were like, "Oh, you're going to juvie. You're gonna get in trouble," right? That's the thing that keeps you honest. And what's really happened in this state has been an erosion of any kind of carrot or stick. Any kind of repercussion for your actions is gone, right? And it's almost like this, well, you're young and you don't know what you're doing and we don't want to cause any trouble for you or anything like that. If you get instilled in you at an early age that you can act like a fool and your parents aren't going to find out and you're not going to face any penalties for that, it winds up breeding an adult that thinks those exact same things. And you know, that's where I think the Democrats have really, really lost it. And look, they're taking these 80-20 issues all the time, right? They're taking the most insane positions on the most insane issues that no one would even have considered anybody taking 20 years ago. But they're actually failing the kids, right? Any issue that you take, right? My car got stolen from my mother-in-law's place, right? Now they've done a situation where juveniles are worth, value to gangs, right? Because they know that they're not going to face the same penalties or the same repercussions. They're really creating an environment that is ruining kids' futures. You can extrapolate that out to how they do the education system and everything else. What they think is being kind and helping people is ruining a whole generation, in my opinion.
I don't disagree. I think that one of the biggest problems is that, school is not focused on education, and our curriculum is honestly really atrocious. I see my kids' homework, and there's so much LGBTQ stuff ingrained in my kids' math, but the men and women's sports, in conjunction with the 5756 guidance, is something that actually I found resonates with Democrats as well. They do not want their daughters being beat up by a man in a sport. And it's interesting talking to them about this, and they really kind of agree with it. But Democrats keep pushing it.
It's abhorrent. And what it is the Democrats going back and abandoning all their old positions, right? You look at the wind turbines and the whales that are dying. Democrats were the ones that were saying save the whales in the 70s and 80s. Now they don't care. They were the ones that were pushing for Title IX, right? And women to have protection in sports back in the day. And that's all good and proper. Now the Trump administration is about to ring up a couple more states for doing Title IX violations for not protecting women in women's sports. And it's almost incomprehensible how much of a shift has happened. I mean, because you could say that 20, 30 years ago, Democrats were on the right side of some of these issues, and they've completely abandoned it and abandoned all common sense. And Republicans, I think, are reaping the benefits of that. In fact, even if you look at polling from what it was about 4 years ago, if you ask the average person what party represents the average person in this country, it was plus 20 some points for Democrats. Now, if you ask that today, it's even. It's even. They've lost 20 points in just a matter of a couple of years from all this craziness.
I think
right?
CNN did a poll, and it was crime was plus 22 for the GOP.
Yeah.
And immigration was like plus 13. I thought I'm not too sure about that number as well too. But they were high in all those categories, which is completely a humongous shift, like you said.
Yeah, good for us. It doesn't seem to be stopping on their front whatsoever. I mean, it's a never-ending avalanche of craziness that I get to work with and just point out how, all the hypocrisy in what they're doing and all the craziness that just is against any kind of reality. And as long as I have a never-ending stream to do that, you'll be able to make videos on your end, and I'll be able to make points on the floor of the assembly.
When I dig through some of these bills, I'm just flabbergasted by just how insane some of them are. And then you get some of them, they're like 3 pages long. And then you get others, there's like 24, 44 pages. And then the ones that are a red flag for me is when I see every assembly person vote for it. Like the illegals get like the no name change or no signature change. Every Democrat signed on to it on the assembly, which is like, whoa, like this isn't good.
But they almost always are monolithic in the way that they vote. I can tell you, I am on 3 different committees. Okay, 3 different committees. In not one of those 3 committees in the last year and a half since I've been there has a Democrat voted no on anything that's come through there, right? And Republicans, we split plenty of times. Some people feel one way about an issue, other people feel another way. I think we look at things objectively. I'm going to be honest. I don't know 50% of the Democrats across the aisle. If I tripped and fell over them, I wouldn't know who the heck they are because they've never stood up. They've never said anything from the floor of the assembly. I'm going to get absolutely blistered for saying this, but I swear this is completely true. Sometimes they'll get tapped on the shoulder and somebody will hand them a resolution or something to read, and they kind of go through it like this and whatever. They never stand up. They never speak on anything. They never stand for anything. They come out. They have a little battle in the back room beforehand if there's a couple people in purple districts that say, I can't vote for this. And they come out and they just vote monolithically. And it's scary to think that, why are they doing this, right? And the answer is they want to keep their seats, because what happens behind the scenes is they're threatened with primaries, right? If you don't vote this way, you're going to get a primary. I can't speak for them. I look in the mirror and I said to myself when I got into this, I'm either going to be myself, and if that means I only get one term out of it, I'll be able to tell my grandkids I was an assemblyman anyway. They're not going to think I'm any cooler if I said I was in for 4 terms, 5 terms, 8 terms, whatever the heck that is. So I don't understand the mindset, and I know it's a little bit of a rant, but just some behind the scenes situation there. I swear I don't know about 50% of them who the hell they are.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of districts, a lot of people.
Yes.
There's 120 members of our assembly, assembly and Senate, I should say, combined. Yeah. It's just wild, when I go there and just kind of confront them, they don't understand why a regular person's there. I see so many lobbyists there. The lobbyists are crawling. I think there's 893 registered lobbyists right now.
Wow.
And it used to be
You know your numbers. You know your numbers.
1,200. I was there battling the gas tax. There was 20 lobbyists for it, and I was the only person speaking up against it, which to me is mind-blowing. And then they look at you when you call them out on it, and they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. It's like, but I want to do that more, because I think the power of the people really is, once you showcase that, hey, listen, you can wear them down a little bit, call them out. They don't like it because the narrative isn't in their favor.
Right. Well, and generally that's a sad, tried and true truth about politics and government, right? If there isn't money behind an issue, and keep in mind, a lot of nonprofits, benefit too. You generally don't have somebody lobbying for it, right? So it takes a lot when citizens step up and start their own citizen group, or when they show up on their own and everything like that. And you were talking numbers before. I'll give you a number that's scary and interesting too. Somebody told me that at one point there used to be 40 full-time State House reporters, right? Mm-hmm. Is there 1 or 2 full-time right now?
I have no idea.
I mean, think about how much more oversight you would get with 40, how much investigative journalism you would get with 40, right?
Why do you think that number went down?
Look, I think, as newspaper and that model started dying, right? There was less salary, there was less staff, as, media conglomerations, started occurring, and everybody was bought up and, came into these huge organizations. I think that probably was part of it too. But it's not good, because I don't ever see anybody doing real investigative journalism. People will poke into things and look around and everything like that. And we're trying to take that mantle on in this office. We're filing requests with different agencies. We're talking with the Trump administration and a bunch of different federal agencies and trying to get oversight on certain issues. We've got 4 or 5 really interesting things that are cooking right now. Some may materialize and some may not, but we're trying to fill the void. Because if, everything's going on unchecked, it's just going to be crazier and crazier.
It is nuts. Well, one of the things I wanted to bring up to you was the S2 funding formula. How is that affecting your area here?
That is something that we've had some meetings with the Trump administration about, right? It is absolutely insane. The way that they do this, and they think people are so stupid that they can say, the computer deletes the formula and the data as soon as it finishes the calculation, so we can't give it to you. And they can't tell everybody everything that goes into the formula. So nobody actually really knows or understands it. But, oh, by the way, it just so happens to disproportionately screw over most of the Republican districts, and all the Democrat districts are killing it. And Newark's got $1.3 billion frickin' dollars. They got it.
As you 5 now.
It's unreal. Oh yeah, 1.5. That's right. They got an increase this year.
Yes, they did.
They got enough money for this superintendent to have $80,000, $90,000 parties. They got a $250,000 budget for fucking balloons. Okay. They're going on
Don't
trips.
forget about the beer they had at kids' party.
And you know what? I got Toms River, the 7th largest school district in the state, who is running one of the most efficient cost per pupil in the entire state. They're doing right by their taxpayers. They have excellent outcomes, and they're doing it cheaply. And they have to sell buildings, they have to sell land, they have to fire 100+ staff and teachers, they have to cut after school programs, all because of this. It's abhorrent and it's shameful and it's obvious, and we're trying to get to the bottom of it. I can tell you the Trump administration is interested in a lot of it. But I can tell you that I think the time is coming to an end for that.
I think so too. I mean, I look at Newark and their math and test scores were abysmal. And when I actually had an argument with somebody, they were saying, oh, it was based off enrollment, but then like the enrollment was actually kind of even, where Toms River actually had better enrollment. And then Toms River was selling trees to pay for buildings. It's really bad. And then they tried to file for bankruptcy recently. And then I didn't think Murphy didn't want that on his his resume or whatever. So he's like just been kicking the can down the road with that. But it's such a shame. I hear so many bad stories about it.
It's unreal. You know, they tried to force Toms River to shut down in the middle of the summer, which would have had a ton of federal violations as well in terms of special education programming and things like that. They were literally trying to force them to shut down, and then they shoved that tax increase down everybody's throats when the Board of Education wouldn't do it. In my opinion, a very, very right decision by the local board. State came in and said, F it, we're going to do it for you.
I know the tax increases are just catastrophic.
Yeah.
You know, and then Newark has, I believe, it's 83% of their income come from outside the district.
Yes, and let's go into this. And I don't want to give you anything to go run off and investigate yourself, because I am working on this as well. Everybody talks about how great a public school system New Jersey has, right? Question is, how manipulated is that when they're passing kids that can't read or write at grade level? Certain schools in this state where nobody can read or write at grade level. It's so scary, and I think if you dig into it a little bit, you're going to find out that all is not as it appears. Let's just put it that way.
I can't remember. It wasn't like Pennsville. Don't know the name of the school, but they went from 49% graduation rate to like 83.
Right, because you can get credit for crazy ass stuff. You can get credit for like cleaning around the house. Like having a job you can get credit for. They give you credit and these appeals for things that have nothing to do with academic prowess or understanding whatsoever, and that's part of it.
How's VOTEC here in this area?
We've got great VOTEC. Ocean County VOTEC school is really, really trying to make large investments. The county commissioners are trying to make large investments. They've been opening new facilities around Ocean County. There is some talk of restarting some small modular nuclear reactors at Oyster Creek and some solar farms, which I think would be another opportunity for like hundreds of really good, high-paying jobs as well. And higher education has changed too, right? Like, I mean, if you're going to school and you're paying a couple $100,000 to get a gender studies degree or something absurd like that, what the hell are you going to do in the real world with that, right? And you come out with all this debt. Ocean County is a ground zero for showing you go to a VOTEC school and come out and you're almost making six figures off the bat right away, and you've got a great trajectory ahead of you, and they get that. They're putting their money in the right spots.
One of the things I love about the VOTEC is the fact that I'm a union construction worker, and my son's in it right now. I'm going to try to push my other sons into it, all three of my boys. And I see like these AI data centers, and the reports from North Jersey is that so many jobs are going to be folded up because of it.
Look, it's an interesting thing, and I don't have a super strong opinion on it yet because there's so many facets of it that I don't fully understand. I understand the draw on the grid that they're making. I also understand that China is just building these things everywhere. Everybody talks about AI. We need AI, yada, yada, yada. But the reality of the situation is to do the computations that get you better results and smarter results, you need power and you need a lot of data centers. And the more data centers there are, the better results that you get, the faster your technology evolves, And I don't want to lose an arms race to China. What I struggle with, and I'm not 100% sure, and I'll say this as somebody who plays a lot of online Call of Duty, right? I'm playing with people overseas, and 1 millisecond here, I'm shooting and they're shooting, and yada, yada, yada. Do we actually need them necessarily in New Jersey, or could they all be out in Wyoming, right? I don't understand the cost value proposition of it yet. I know that there's some good jobs associated with it. Is the per square foot of land that is used for a data center just as good as getting some other business in there? I don't know that. There's a lot that we still need to figure out. But you touched on the electrical side of things, and that's the biggest component to it. Is we're in such a crisis right now, and I have a hard time kind of taking off that lens that I look at things through and knowing that it's going to create more and more pressure on our already effed grid.
Well, when I went there in April and I called them out for the 6 power plants, right, including the Oyster Creek one that closed, and they championed it, and they gave me this face like, oh, duh. And it just blew my mind, because they are trying to shift the blame to somebody else, and the Democrats.
Right, of course.
And they catastrophically destroyed our supply here.
Yes.
While banking on wind farms.
Yes.
And it's just a mess. It's a disaster.
Look. First of all, it's like everything that they do. They constantly, through their actions that have no vision for the future, right? If I could easily put Republicans and Democrats into buckets, right? The Republicans are the adults in the room that actually see the repercussions for the future and how it could impact things, and have the ability and sometimes the tough, as a new father, the toughness to be able to say, well, this isn't going to be good for us in the future. Democrats, it's all emotional, right? It's all pandering. It's all how can we make different people happy and get different buckets of votes for ourselves. So they make these decisions, whether it's with crime, right, where then they create more crime and then have to spend more money to fix that, or with energy, where they did all these decisions when energy was really cheap, and they could bury it in that pricing structure. And now the chickens are coming home to roost, right? And they have no game plan for it. And they screwed things up so badly that it's going to take years to fix it and to get out of it, right? It's tough to have to be the adults in the room, and the Republicans started an energy task force, and we've been hammering it home in our committee as well. But there's no easy solution to this. We're going to have to make some pretty tough decisions here, and we're vulnerable. The thing that people are not talking about right now is how vulnerable we are as a state. And what do I mean by vulnerable? We used to be an energy exporter, right? Everybody knows that. Now we're an energy importer. Well, what does that mean? We're reliant on other states. If other states ever woke up one day and decided to cut the lines, literally or figuratively, we would not have enough power to power the state of New Jersey, and we would be in brownouts and blackouts immediately. And with all this AI and with all the demand on the system, that day's coming a lot faster than people think. And that's one of the things we're looking at as well.
Well, Democrats also want to add EV mandates on us as well, too. And I know the governor's election right now, one side, the Democrats keep wanting it and pushing the green energy nonsense we have, and the Republicans do not want it. And I look at California, and they were having brownouts and blackouts because there was too much strain on the grid. Could you imagine the state of New Jersey having an EV mandate and banning gas cars when you were a kid?
It's unreal. It's absolutely unreal. And again, it is so foolhardy. Think about everything that goes into an electric car and how big that battery is that is on the underside of the vehicle. And where does the cobalt come from? Where does the lithium come from? They're coming from open pit mining in Africa, where 9-year-old kids are down there suffering in virtual slave labor, extracting it from the earth. And is that an environmentally friendly operation? No, it isn't. And how long do the batteries last? And where do you put the batteries when they're done? And everything along those lines. And then when you actually plug it into the grid, where the hell do you think that power is coming from anyway? It's absolutely ridiculous how much more manufacturing those types of vehicles and those applications take, but nobody talks about that. Same with offshore wind. It's the same thing.
Well, when I was digging the offshore wind, I saw that it wasn't benefiting us at 65% when the thing was spinning.
Right.
And then Murphy was on News 12, and he says, I have no plans for decommission. I just want to get them built. And I'm like, dude, I know what it takes to build these things. Right. The information for how much it's going to cost and everything, and how much it's going to charge. That didn't include installation, decommission, line degradation, line transfers, and it was catastrophic. These things are not money well spent. And were you there when they were trying to spend $1 billion on a bailout? Or sorry, did spend $1 billion on a bailout?
Yes. And in fact, one of my last acts as mayor of Point Pleasant Beach before I came to the assembly, I was still fired up, and I went in and I testified, and I told them all the problems that Orsted had financially in the past and how they'd already been bailed out by JP Morgan. And I laid it all out, and here I was feeling myself, little old mayor of Point Pleasant Beach, and crickets, right? And then I get into the assembly, Orsted fails, pulls out of the projects, and we went in again and we told them, here's all the reasons that it's flawed for the future anyway. Crickets again. And that's a combination of the campaign donations. It's an easy industry to talk about and make it seem like it's mom and pop, green energy, these great little organizations. It's Shell Energy. It's big international conglomerates doing all this kind of stuff, right? And they're spreading around campaign donations at the local level. They were going around, they have their government affairs, their public affairs, people on the ground offering grants up to local municipalities, which is essentially them trying to buy off support, right? They have their associations and the companies and everybody else that's donating at the state level and at the federal level that was donating to Biden and all that. And once you've already made the deal with the devil and you've taken the money, right, you don't have the ability to say, oh no, we screwed up. So that's why they keep charging ahead, despite the fact that it's killing endangered, the North Atlantic right whale, and that it's jeopardizing national security because of the radar components of having so many together. And you're drilling in Island Beach State Park where, it was already codified that you could never actually do that. And on and on and on. They're just pushing aside things that they used to stand for before because they've already made that deal with the devil.
I still remember seeing an image, and the amount of wind farms they wanted to do off our coast was 1.5 times the state size of New Jersey. And they kept pushing and pushing. And man, awesome job on New Jersey residents really pushing back.
Yes. And that's a perfect example, right? It's a perfect example. It's why you're getting a lot of eyeballs and views because you're waking people up, right? I mean, is that
nice plug,
right? There you go. And why I think some of us in the assembly are getting some traction too. People want to course correct. They want things to go in the right direction. It's just they don't have the time to do it. We had a lot of little citizen groups pop up that made it easy for people to jump in. There were rallies all over the state. People were able to jump in. President Trump took on the issue on the campaign trail. It's tough to get that kind of traction for everything, but it does show that there's a limit to what people are willing to deal with, right? And that gives you a little bit of hope for the future.
Well, I think it's just people were really just fed up. And I said, you mentioned the whales showed on our shores, and I've never seen one ever when I was a kid.
Right.
And just all of a sudden, they're just like, it's like a weekly thing. And then the dolphins were showing up. And then there's like the beach, 30 of them on like a beach.
And did we have any this winter when they weren't doing the sonar testing? We didn't have a damn one. We didn't have a damn one show up. I mean, I got 16 towns. I got 25 miles of the Jersey Shore. None of my towns were reporting any whales or dolphins stranded.
It's interesting thinking about Offshore, and they actually put a catastrophic report on Cape May about drop in tourism. These aren't actually beneficial for climate change.
Yep.
And they put this report out, and they're like, nah, we're going to still push for it. I'm like, I don't understand it. The whole wind farm debacle makes absolutely no sense. But like, when we made noise, people that we were working with, about the gas stove ban, because that was ridiculous.
Yes.
And then, obviously the gas car ban. And I want to bring up one more thing here.
Yeah.
Well, about the bird feeder ban, I got so many people messaging me, I can't believe this is where it's going.
All right, here's the thing. Every elected official that feels like they need to do something. And that's why government is so freaking bloated. Just because you're in a seat and because you can pass legislation, they feel like they can. So we've already addressed a million different issues, and different battles have already been waged and taken up. People who want to feel relevant are just searching for stupid things to bring forward, and that is the epitome of that, right? Like, why would you even think that that's something that the government needs to tackle and that you need to spend taxpayer dollars on to even print the paper that it's written on?
I don't know. It really blew my mind. I couldn't believe when I read it, and I was just laughing about it, and then I got angry about it. And I was like, they want you to take this thing down every night. It can't be during certain times of the year. I just couldn't believe it. And obviously, and the literature they actually wrote for that bill showcased that if you're on a farm unintentionally feeding like a wild animal, you could be fined because you have a farm. Like, it was written so poorly, and thank God it's been like kind of quiet about it.
Right.
But I still love bringing it up because what an overreach of a bill. That's so many bills that are out there.
Perfect example, and something that resonates with everybody because of how absurd it is on the surface, right?
Well, I mean, the plastic bag ban as well, the straw ban, like.
Well, and look, what have we done with the plastic bag ban? We're using more plastic than we've ever used before, because the bags that you now have to buy and pay $1 or so at the grocery store, they use like the equivalent of like 30 plastic bags. You forget them all the time, so you buy them all the time. They're piling up in everybody. We go look at everybody's trunk. Everybody's trunk probably has like 20 or 30 of these things. They create the problem, and then they make it worse because they didn't have any foresight when they were doing it.
One interesting thing I saw as a byproduct is that supermarkets, Walmart, any place that actually sells these bags is actually making profit off these bags too. So it's not only you have to battle the government, now you have to battle all these other places that are now profiting off of this bill. So it's interesting, and I know so many people that just want them back. It's ridiculous to have it had ever been taken away in the first place. I go to Virginia for vacation now. I can't afford Ocean City, New Jersey. And they have plastic bags down there. It was like, what a joy. You cannot believe it. And that's another thing, is that these beach towns are, the cost is astronomical. Are you seeing that in Point Pleasant also?
Look, the costs of everything are certainly going up because of the way that we demonize business here in this state. But you look at the plastic, right? They did away with the straws, right? And what did they replace a lot of the straws with? These big, thick plastic caps that you now drink out of, which probably have more in it than anything else. And that costs a little bit more money probably than a fraction of a cent straw. And things just compound on each other, right? I mean, the businesses in the beach towns that I represent, they had a fairly rough summer, and some of it's weather dependent. We didn't have a great June, we didn't have a great May, but some of it is just the rising cost of everything. It's becoming too much.
Well, hopefully that changes, the next couple of years down there. It's just such a shame to see, like, a place I love, Ocean City, like, I can't even afford to go there. And it's an hour from me. I have to drive 5 hours for vacation now.
That's a shame.
It really stinks. And I can get a house with a pool instead of this little one floor, room. And it stinks. I want my kids to have, good core memories here in Jersey, not another state.
Right. It's a shame that a lot of our first responders can't live in the towns that they service, right? Because things have gone up so much. Everything that we do costs more. The cost to pave a road in New Jersey is like twice that of what the second most expensive state is, right? It's not sustainable to keep it going in this direction. And we need to start making decisions that make sense, with energy, when natural gas is 1/10 the cost of offshore wind and some of these other sources of energy. Why would you not be doing that for any reason other than a campaign talking point, or to be able to say that you were a green energy star or something stupid? And the more smart decisions that we make, the less we demonize businesses and scare them away, the better position that we're going to be in.
What is something that you would change in the assembly to help benefit everyone? I'm not saying just in general. I'm saying, like, what do you think somebody, more transparency, maybe legislation that can't be stacked 4 times in a row to try to get it passed?
I'm going to give you the simplest thing imaginable, and this is almost mind-boggling that they weren't for this. We get the budget, okay? The budget, right? This big, spending $57 billion, right? A budget that has gone up 70% since Chris Christie left office, which is almost incomprehensible. The members of the budget committee usually get that the night before the vote, and then that winds up being like 2 days in advance for us, a day and a half for the general members of it, right? There's no way that anybody can go through that in any reasonable way. And even if you could go through it, there's no option to even have public debate, because a lot of times in the committee they push things through without it being fully baked. people like yourself and other news outlets and news sources don't even have time to raise it, to put a video up, to put a post up, to have people comment, go back and forth, a natural process, right? I stood up on the floor of the assembly and I said, I'd like them to make a motion to have 14 days minimum that we can have to see the budget. And they blocked it. And they just sat down. And what are you trying to hide? Like, why is that a bad thing? Okay, I'm even giving you a pass. You got it through this year, right? This is for the following year. You got 365 days or to take 14 days out of that to get ready for it. And they didn't even entertain it, right? They just summarily dismissed it. Now imagine what kind of oversight they would have if you actually had two weeks to debate that. And I'll tell you the other component too. They carve out like anywhere between $700 million and $1 billion for pork projects every single year. And that goes in basically after the fact, right? So nobody knows about that. And, anybody who's been good, which is always the Democrats, gets little pet projects. They get a park for their district, whatever it may be. Republicans never realize any of that, even though probably disproportionately Republican districts are driving the budget and their taxes are actually the ones that are filling it, more than some of the Democrat districts. There needs to be oversight in that process too. You can't just unilaterally in a back room decide how to spend $1 billion of our taxpayer dollars. So there's some things that could be fixed right away if people wanted more transparency in government. I think we also should teach more about what happens in the State House in Trenton in our school system. The average person that voted for Trump understands okay, well, here's what he's doing and here's why I like him and everything along those lines. But 300,000 people voted in the presidential election that didn't vote in the gubernatorial election last time, right? So there's 300,000 people out there who don't realize what's going on under our dome and how it's affecting them even more in most instances than what's happening on the national level and the presidential level, right? We started out talking about immigration in sanctuary states. I don't think they understand that we're incentivizing people to come here. We're incentivizing them to stay. We're protecting them to stay, and we're spending all of your money to do it.
What do you think would be the best way to reach them? I use social media to converse and inform. What do you think would be the best way to reach those people to get them out to vote more?
That's a problem as old as time itself, right? I mean, you and I could be political consultants making a gazillion dollars if we actually had the answer to that. Look, everything can't be performative, right? Everything can't just be anger and everything like that. But people drown in the nuance of it. They don't want to hear a 10-point plan for, fixing taxes or why it matters or anything along those lines. I don't know if I have the answer to that. I wish I did. And the only way that I do it is one person at a time, right? I don't know how you're getting to one person at a time otherwise.
I think for me, the way I reach people is to keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it.
Right, good point.
Your budget's increasing. S2 funding formula drove up property taxes via this person. This person is in your district. Vote them out.
Okay, and I agree with that. And look, I view that as my job, trying to distill really crazy nuanced stuff down to a simple manner. But as you well know, you have between 1 and 6 seconds. The key is how do you grab them? How do you grab them in such a quick period of time when you have such a little amount to actually resonate with them, and they're fighting with Mr. Beast and him giving away $10 million for whoever can sit in an airplane for 3 weeks, right? That's tough.
I think one of the things that I've noticed doing this is when somebody is too robotic, somebody's too formal,
right?
You don't resonate with them.
Right.
That's why you really appeal to me, because you really just are very genuine.
Likewise, thanks.
But for me, it's if you are just a regular person, talk to them, I think that is more genuine. And that's actually what I'm trying to get the GOP to do more in their text messages, in their speaking points. Because I think once you just appeal to people as people,
right,
and not as a vote, you'll resonate with them. You'll grab them. And when we do the video like this, even if we reached one person, that one person might have 1,000 people working at that plant.
Right.
That might be severely affected by something that's going down. And,
right.
And then affects 10,000 people down the road.
I'm a lot more cynical now than I was when I was a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed councilman, and I agree with you. I think you're absolutely right. The growing numbers that you have is a testament to that. The growing numbers that I have, I think, is a testament to that. And it shows that there is an appetite for that, right? There are people out there who want to know more. There are people out there who want to be active. And we can only control what we can only control. And we just got to keep banging away, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So one thing I think I would want to change in our legislator is to have me not have to go to Trenton to testify about bills. Because so many people can't leave work.
Right.
And as I mentioned, the lobbyists that are there, 893 of them, and we have to just deal with it because we have jobs. Right. And I would love Zoom calls and videos in every single one of our committees and be able to testify while I'm at work.
But the opposite's happening. The reality is they don't want you to know. They don't want you to see what the fuck is going on in there. That's the reality of the situation. Look, and because we were making hay on it, right?
Well, that's why I think we need to dedicate people filming it for us, like when to go there.
Yeah,
I mean, I can tell you right now, just from the 2 times I was on camera there, they do not like me being there.
Yeah.
They do not want opposition there, which makes me want to go there more.
That's right. I mean, that's what most people's mindset should be. They should want to fight. They should want to keep going. Reality dictates something else when you're putting food on the table and you got to work and you got a family and you got kids. I got a new kid now. It's tough to get that done. I think that's why you also get a lot of older people who wind up jumping into politics too, because they're retired and they have time. The average person can't jump into politics, let alone be involved from a reporting perspective.
Definitely. How's the baby, by the way?
Kid's cool. The kid's a cool little dude. He's
now, is this your only one?
It is my first.
Really? Okay.
My first, and let me tell you, waiting until you're 46 to have your first kid is an interesting endeavor.
Why is that?
I mean, you get set in your ways, right? I've been doing the same thing since I was 21 years old. I'm used to, being on my own schedule and everything like that, and it's like a seismic shift, right? And the sleep deprivation is crazy, but that's the thing, right? That's the most important thing. What are we all doing here if we're not creating a new generation, and if we're not teaching a new generation, and if we don't want a new generation to be better than us? So I actually love all of it. And he's a super cute little dude. For someone who I think probably in public comes off like a bit of a hard ass a lot of times, I am just total pile of mush for this kid, just singing nonsensical songs to him around the house.
One of the things that makes me fight hard is my kids. And you mentioned you have a new kid here, and what do you want for New Jersey? Like for them to like be able to live here?
Look, it's legitimately a little bit different now that I've got this little 7-week-old dude sitting there, right? You think I'm 46, I'm thinking 30, 40 years in the future in terms of myself, depending on how much fatty foods I eat and how many times I go jogging a week. Now I got this little dude that potentially going to live 100 plus years, right? That extends things out quite a bit. So you start thinking long term about all the decisions you make, and not just how is it going to affect me, but how's it going to affect him? How's it going to affect his life as an adult? It really highlights how crazy we've been in New Jersey with the spending. It highlights how much we need to get things under control right now as a state, right? Or we're going to lose the few good things that we have left, how we don't want to industrialize this state anymore. I don't want him to grow up in New Jersey where he looks out at thousands of blinking windmills and the red lights on the top of them and dead whales floating on the water or anything along those lines, any more than I want him to live in a place where he has to look over his shoulder, right? And he has to worry, is something bad going to happen to me? Can I speak up? Can I say my, what I really feel without worrying about getting persecuted or getting attacked? And those are scary things to think about, as you well know, but it gets highlighted once you start having kids, right?
Oh, definitely, 100%. I just want to make sure that my kids can stay here, and I would love for them to generationally be here. It's interesting that you brought up, persecution for your beliefs. We had the Charlie Kirk, incident that happened. That was horrible, but the uplifting things from it as well. But the violence was awful. Just like, talking about it and like politicizing it and and celebrating it. Like, were you like seeing that at all from anybody in your area?
It was abhorrent. It was abhorrent. We had a teacher here in Ocean County that posted some absolutely disgusting things. I saw a nurse in Ocean County in my district that posted some absolutely disgusting things. I saw a business owner in Ocean County, the same thing. And these are people that you pass on the street. These are constituents that I represent. How have we fallen so fast as a society that people think that celebrating any kind of political violence is okay? If something happened to a Democrat today or tomorrow, it would be just as abhorrent if it was a Republican. And we also have a real mental health crisis in this country. We have created a system where we almost celebrate the mental issues that we have, and where we don't address the root causes of things, and we tell everybody that they're great and that they're special, and a lot of times they're not. You see it right now just in political discourse and how people talk. Most people can't carry on a real conversation. They can't go tit for tat. They can't go back and forth and actually have facts that back up what they're saying. They turn to violence, right? And I do think it's disproportionately on one side of the aisle. And whether that's just simply saying, F you, right? Or if it actually is brandishing a gun and actually doing stuff like that. Because right here in this office, we've got crews coming in a couple weeks, and we have to make a safe room here. We have to make an actual safe room because things have gotten so bad as a society that we can't just open the door and have somebody have access to everything. We have to basically build a bulletproof area where they come in and they're penned in, and then only will get buzzed in after they're verified. And there's going to be like 4 or 5 key fob access points to even get upstairs or anything like that. It's incomprehensible to me. How are we there? How is it every single day there seems to be some new vestige of violence? It's scary.
Yeah, when I see things like 8647 at these events that I go to, and it's just...
It's permeating everywhere.
On the flip side of this, the political violence is so many vigils I've been to recently have been so uplifting and with deep prayer and just very communicable. Have you been to any of these before?
So we had one right here in our district, right here in Brick Township, and there were literally 3,000 to 4,000 people there. It was unreal. And in all seriousness, I was struggling for a couple days about a lot of the stuff that we just talked about, and how abhorrent it was, and how can people actually think these things and say these things. And you feel a little bit alone sometimes, right? Is the world gone mad? Am I the only sane person left? And then you come out and you look at 3,000-4,000 people holding up their cell phone lights and holding up their candles and singing God Bless the USA and praying and having a real return to good morals and values. And that made me feel hope for the first time in a while, and I think we all needed that a little bit. So there is a silver lining to an incredibly terrible situation, right? Gen Z is more religious than the previous generation. That's never really happened before. Gen Z seems like they're becoming more conservative than the previous generation. That's never really happened before. It's a shame that sometimes horrible things need to happen to have a shift, but even everything that Charlie did and Charlie stood for, and all the videos that he produced and all the points that he made are now getting traction well beyond what they were getting before, and it's reaching an even broader audience, and maybe that's going to make a difference.
I will tell you something real quick here. As I said, I work for a union, which they aim you to be a Democrat, and most of them now lean right. I had a guy come up to me who's been a lifelong Democrat, mentioned to me and brought up Charlie Kirk and said, I knew nothing about him before this. And now he says, I kind of agree with a lot of what he said. So if you're seeing somebody that really was maybe a moderate left, now seeing that and being exposed to that, it's a good sign for the future that maybe they'll be opened up to talking. And I really would love for Democrats and us to have conversations about things.
Right.
Because we need to not have this political battle anymore.
Hopefully discourse and disagreement without the violence is possible in the future. But some days I feel hopeful about it, and some days I don't.
Well, I know with what I do, what you do, you have to have a lot of mental fortitude, and you have to each day just keep pressing on no matter what happens. I imagine it's a struggle some days, but then you get like that one phone call, like from somebody.
Right. Everybody needs a little validation, right?
Yeah.
You get a little validation, and that kind of gives you the strength to just move on and keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it.
100%. And it's something that I truly appreciate from my followers, and I'm sure you appreciate as well from just what you said. It's just wild to me, how a little thank you for what you're doing goes a long way.
And that's a good point to everybody who's going to be watching this out there, right? Take the time to leave a positive comment on somebody's page, right? Take the time to text somebody and tell them that they did a good job on something, or you're proud of them, or whatever it may be. Those are the things that matter in life, right? We can't just all exist in a vacuum. We're a community. People want community. That's what human beings are, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't think enough people do that, but it makes a big difference when it does happen.
Well, right? We get back to that.
Yeah.
I really would love that. That point where we can all have those family dinners on Sundays. And,
very Norman Rockwell.
Not working 2 to 3 jobs to try to pay the bills, and just enjoying life and not struggling to survive.
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay, sir. Well, Paul, I really appreciate having me here. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Mike.
Take it easy.